Hello, my name is Rain and welcome back to my channel where I discuss fantasy Formula 1. I'm feeling great today, and because of this, I think I might just use my final fix chip. On who and who do I bring in? Stick around and you will find out. So, if you didn't watch qualifying yesterday, we had another upset, another big Q1 exit. Actually, we had two, right? We had both Oscar Piastri and Checo Perez go out in Q1. Oscar Piastri in 17th and Checo in 18th. Initially, when this happened, immediately I knew that a video had to be made because there is a lot of things that this could mean. In terms of Checo, I'm not going to discuss Checo whatsoever because I just think if you're going for someone starting at the back of the grid, you would go for Piastri. Now, if you can't afford Piastri, I have a different solution for you, but I'm going to get to that in a while. So let me just show you this real quick. I did this yesterday on stream or off the stream after the P3 ended, and this was, do you final fix in Piastri, right? This was a quick, just mental math that I did on MS Paint, and I thought it would work out fine for this video as well. Essentially what this is Piastri's expected score, what I think he would get, right? If he gets to P10, I think he's landing on roughly 15 points, right? He's starting 17th, the 7 positions gained, 7 overtakes, and 1 point for ending up P10. But he does have higher potential than that. At a P7, he would up to about 25 points. But not only that, this is like what he can do, right, at a P10, P7. But he has the potential of getting even further than that. I saw, I'm going to take this straight from F1 Fantasy Hub, Rob's tweets that he made, that so far this season, we have had a couple of premium drivers hauling, starting further back on the grid. Verstappen started P11 in Spa, and he ended up P4 with a total score of 35 points. We had Norris starting P15 in Azerbaijan, ending up P4 for total score of 38. Now, he only ended up P4 because there was a crash, right, between Sainz and Checo, so it would have been slightly less, but still, that's still 38 points. And then Russell recently in Austin, P20 to P6 for a total score of 38. Now, we also had someone like Hamilton starting far back in Austin, DNFing, so that's always a risk, of course, but you see here that like the 25 points could end up being more if we're getting fastest laps, driver of the days, or if he gets further than P7. Like if he starts getting into like a P5 territory, there's a lot of more points to be had there. So just in total, Piastri has a lot of potential starting that far back on the grid, and I think he's a good final fix option, especially if you have Hamilton. Piastri's not that much more expensive than Hamilton. It's like $1 million, roughly. So Hamilton starting P6, if he just finishes P6, that's going to be like 10 points, right? That's not a lot. That's with some overtakes in there. So looking what Piastri can do, like unless Piastri DNFs, I don't think Piastri's going to end up lower than P10. I really don't see that happening. So in the case where you have Hamilton, I think it's not even a question. I think you just do it. I think it's a guaranteed yes, you should final fix. Then the question comes if you have Leclerc, because that's where I'm at, right? I'm in that boat. I have Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris in my team. Is it worth it then? Because Charles Leclerc from a P4 can obviously do great things if the Ferrari's race pace is really good. If he just ends up P4, where he's starting where he's at, end up where he's at, an overtake or two during the pit windows, when cars are on different tires, that's about 14 points. And I mean, if Piastri only ends up P10, that's only a slight increase. But then again, Leclerc could end up on P2. Definitely, I could see that happening. I mean, he won from P4 last weekend. That would be about a score of 22 points. And again, none of these numbers are exact. This is just rough estimates on overtakes, positions gained, and usually what, how many overtakes someone in this position gains if they end up in the same position. With Leclerc, it's harder because you can see, like, I put Piastri between 15 and 25 with the opportunity of, you know, maybe reaching like 35 plus points. Maybe. Like, maybe he can reach 35 plus. Leclerc 14 to 22, but then again, if Leclerc goes and wins like he did last weekend, I mean, this score ups by a ton as well. You go from 18 to 25. That alone is 7 points. But a win for Leclerc from P4 would likely include driver of the day. So this would be an additional like 17 points. So like Leclerc could probably end up on a 40 plus pointer if he wins, right? And this would maybe be if Piastri's like P5 or above, P5 plus, right? So this could happen for all of them, which means that who really has the highest ceiling? Is it Piastri? Is it Leclerc? I think you still gotta give it to Piastri, but their floor is very similar, and overall, this could end up being a coin flip. And this is what I was considering first. You know, do you go from Leclerc to Piastri? Is that worth it? But then I thought of another driver, Mr. Smooth Operator himself. All right. If Sainz wins, which I can definitely see happening, especially with how good the cars leading the first lap has been in terms of, you know, tire deg and just general pace, not being in the dirty area behind cars and being able to maintain that. We've seen that a bunch of times recently. And if Sainz can just lead into turn one, which I think he definitely has the opportunity to do as long as he gets a good launch, all we need is like Verstappen and Norris to fight each other, and Sainz should get out ahead. And if Sainz does that, then I do think he can just go on and win it. And if he wins it, we're talking a 35 plus point haul, maybe more. I mean, total point haul with his 10 points from qualifying, it is a 45 plus point haul. But again, all of these, I should have mentioned that at the start of the video, but all of these numbers are just what you get in the race, because that's what you get on a final fix. I'm not talking about qualifying points whatsoever. So Sainz could reach a 37, 40 pointer for sure from P1. And this seems like more likely than any of these big scores. Even so, like this one, right? And maybe this one is likely, the 25 pointer here for Piastri ending up P7. But him getting higher than this would probably need, similar to Norris in Azerbaijan, some sort of crash among the top drivers for him to reach a point score such as this. So I think Leclerc actually is more unlikely to reach this high, like is the least likely to reach the high potential of 40 plus points when you compare to Piastri and Sainz, and Sainz has higher scores. So I think if you have Leclerc like I do, maybe you do final fix, but you final fix in Sainz. And that is what I'm considering. And in terms of who is likely to get the most points out of either Sainz or Piastri, again, I think Piastri could end up P7, but I think he would need some help to reach beyond that. And for that reason alone, I think Sainz is most likely to end up P1 after today. If I had to bet on anyone, it would be Sainz or Lando. And I've done a rough thing of what happens if Sainz is P3 here. And even this, you know, even a P3 from Sainz could outscore Leclerc's P4. You know, say it's Lando on P1, maybe Sainz is P2 or even P3, and then Max Verstappen is the other one, and then Leclerc stays P4. You know, I calculated Leclerc's P4 points as being roughly around 14. I do think I see the least risk and the most upside with getting Sainz in for Leclerc. Now, I know yesterday I said that I would trust the simulations, and these are the simulations actually for Arthur's, you know, the points expected in the race. And here, Piastri does come out on top on 35 points. And that is what I've calculated in my sort of mental math that has no real actual statistical value, right? But again, there's a risk with Piastri starting far back. We saw that with Hamilton last time. And even though Sainz's projected score is only 25.7, and Leclerc's is 26.7. I don't really trust this. I do think Sainz should be more likely to win than Leclerc. And in that case, I do think he gets driver of the day. So the 25.7 and 26.7 is calculated on some sort of race pace. And I don't know exactly how these predictions are made. So I do think the Sainz, like if Sainz wins, that is a 35-point haul. And I am going to bet with, this. I think Sainz wins. Just because what we saw Leclerc leading in lap 1, turn 1, led for essentially the rest of the race. In Singapore, you had Norris leading, led for the rest of the race. You then had the Azerbaijan Grand Prix where Piastri did overtake Leclerc, but then after that, Leclerc was unable to catch up. It was difficult to overtake the car in first. That was just a massively impressive one-time lunge from Piastri to make that overtake on Leclerc. Then in the Italian Grand Prix, you can't really count it because Leclerc was on a different strategy from the others competing for the win. So you can't really look at that one. But then look at the Dutch Grand Prix, where again, Norris led the entire lap. And you can say that's all dominance on the McLaren car, and maybe it is in a way. But I think specifically, right, in Kota, I don't think, yes, the Ferrari was clearly good, but I don't think if Leclerc wasn't leading that turn 1, I don't think it would have been a set in stone thing that he would go on and win it. So I do think there's some merit in that whoever leads lap 1 can stay ahead. And I think that's just a trend we've seen recently. And a lot of drivers are also talking about this, discussing how it's difficult for them to keep the same pace as the person in front because that dirty air following behind cars does wear more on the tires. And makes it so they have to push harder, right? So, although despite this simulation saying that Piastri is the most likely to, the one with the highest upside here, and again, I think Piastri could definitely reach 35 points. I just think Sainz can also reach 35 points, and I feel like Sainz's floor is way higher than Piastri's floor because I think worst case Sainz is up like P3 maybe. And even then, as long as Leclerc's not ahead of him, if Leclerc stays back on P4 and it's like Norris and Verstappen in front, then they are the ones that then, the move would still end up panning out for me in, at least I would get more points than I would with my current team with Leclerc. And in fact, I've slept on it. I feel great about it. It's time. It's time. I'll see you in the next video.